Alli, why am I not losing weight?
Well, there's only one requirement for weight loss. And if you're not losing weight, you're missing that one thing. And so today, we're going to tell you what that one thing is. Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Hey, Shawna, how many times have clients ask you, or friends and family, what do you eat? Just tell me what you eat.
Yeah, quite a bit. And I think that number one, I take it as a compliment because I know that the reason for they're asking it is like, hey, she seems to not have a weight issue. So whatever she's eating, that's got to be the magic bullet, the simple formula. Is that kind of how you interpret that question?
Yes, it is a compliment, and it also tells me a little bit into the thinking of especially if it's a client that I'm dealing with, kind of where they're at in their journey and their thought process. And what I think that you and I can help maybe today on this podcast is diving a little bit deeper and talking about maybe why that may be a good question, but why it may not be the best question, and maybe what some better questions would be and why. So let me ask you first, if let's say that I'm wanting to lose weight and I'm not losing weight, and I'm asking you, Shawna, what are you eating? What am I missing? Like, give me at least one thing there that I might be missing by asking you that.
Yeah, and the big missing point is the whole point of why the requirement of weight loss or fat loss. And that was kind of the teaser of how we dived into this podcast. And what I eat is, while it's not totally irrelevant, there are some value, adds by knowing what a person that is at maintenance weight is eating that could help. But the big thing is that if a person is not losing weight, it's because it's the energy balance, it's the calorie deficit. So in order to lose weight, like here's the Coles notes, here's the short answer to the missing requirement, and that is consistent calorie deficit. And that is not for one day, that is over time. You have to be in a calorie deficit. That means that you're eating less than you are that your body requires. So your body has to tap into some of those energy stores. And it seems like it's a simple principle, but not so much.
Yeah. Like if I'm a client coming to you and or just someone who's listening who wants to lose weight, and I go to someone who's in weight maintenance, or I see that they're in great shape, of course I think, well, I want to know what they're doing. The problem with that question is they're not trying to lose weight like I am. And so what they're doing is totally different than what I need to be doing if I, in fact, want to lose weight. Because to lose weight, the big answer, as Shawna just gave us, the big magic pill is we have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. Well, if I'm not trying to lose weight, I'm not living my life in a calorie deficit. I'm in maintenance. So asking me what I'm eating is not going to help someone who wants to lose weight. And so that calorie deficit is a big deal.
And then the other thing is that body composition plays a lot into how many calories a person can eat, activity level, stress level, sleep. Like there's so many factors, and there's actually a number of ways to creating a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus that doesn't necessarily involve food. Like a lot of my clients, instead of like giving them less calories, I'll give them more activity. Like I'll say, start walking more, just start increasing your NEAT, non-activity thermogenesis, so that you are actually burning a bit more calories throughout the day. And so even if you're eating in a maintenance, but you're expending more energy, then that's going to help you create that deficit.
Yes, and that's another thing to look at when you're thinking about that question of, if I'm wanting to lose weight and I'm asking Shawna, what do you eat? I'm also not considering your activity
What I'm
level,
doing.
what you're doing, and how much calories you're burning. Because a calorie, like if you were going to explain to someone, if I just, I'm totally new to this, and where are you throwing out this term calorie deficit? Like, break it down for me, Shawna. What does that even mean?
Well, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, there's so many things that play into what the calorie deficit means, right?
But at the basic level, it just means what?
It just means that you have to eat less than what your body require, like than the energy that you need. So you're tapping into those your own energy stores, fat stores.
And yours is different than mine. Like my
Yes.
requirements are different than yours. We have different, even though I know we're both active, we're still not the same.
Correct. Yeah, and like even your starting body weight. So a bigger person is actually going to have a higher, like going to be able to ingest more calories because it's like, are you, no, I'm not trying to be disparaging. I'm using this as an example, but like
Sure.
driving a bus requires more energy than a smart car. A
Yeah.
smart car takes less fuel than driving a bigger vehicle.
Yes.
So, so
Yes.
the
Yes.
bigger person has more wiggle room. It's just going to be able to eat more, even
Right.
though in order for that person in a larger size body, they still have to create a deficit that is a deficit for them. Their
Yes.
deficit might be the same as maintenance or surplus calories for a smaller person. So smaller people, they have less wiggle room because they
Yes.
just don't have as high energy requirements.
I love to ask clients, and it's a potential clients that we have a pretty high staircase that we go up to our consult room in our facility. And so it's kind of like my first fitness test for people is, how well do they move? Are they able to do stairs? Do they say, no, I don't, do we need to meet downstairs because stairs
Yeah,
are not available to them? Are they huffing and puffing? They make it up the stairs, but then
yeah,
they're huffing and puffing. And so one of the questions that I like to ask people, just to again get them to think, shift that thinking, is we'll go up the stairs and be like, oh, I'm out of shape, and I'll say, well, who worked harder going up the stairs just then, you or I? Especially if I'm talking to someone who has a weight loss goal, and
yeah,
I'm 5'1.5" and weigh, 120 something pounds. And so let's say I'm meeting with a lady who wants to lose 50 or more pounds. And I say, who worked harder going up the stairs just then? Who was working harder? And a lot of times they'll say that I was instead of them. They'll tell me that if the smaller person, that had less weight to carry up the stairs was working harder. And so that is just that understanding of, yes, if you're carrying more weight on a regular basis, you're already going to be burning more calories, like your bus example. I mean, it's requires more energy. If I have a client, one of the things I really try to explain to clients when they're new is, yes, a push-up is, you feel like, why can't I do that yet? Well, you can't compare me doing a push-up to, someone who, one, if they're new, but two, if they're a totally different body weight than me and they have not built that muscle yet. One, they may be lifting a lot more weight, physical weight, than I'm lifting in that same activity. So that is one understanding, is asking someone who is at a maintenance weight, what do you eat or what do you do, but I do think it's good for us to have an awareness of that so we can start watching. One of my clients who was taking one of the newer weight loss shots, noticed that she was going out with a family member, and because of this weight loss medicine, it's curbing her appetite, so she doesn't eat as much, which puts you in a calorie deficit. Surprise, surprise.
yeah.
But what she noticed, did she never noticed before, is she couldn't eat all of her food, and normally she eats everything when she goes out. And she noticed that the family member that she was with left so much food on the plate and was like getting it to go, but or just didn't eat all that food. And she just never noticed that before. And this person is smaller, and she never. It just made her more aware now that her hunger is craved and she doesn't have the appetite to eat all that. She became more aware that someone else was not eating that food that she never paid attention to, never noticed that she eats with on a regular basis, just never connected those things. So that calorie deficit is a big one.
Well, and a lot of times, like we've talked about, food logging,
Mm,
like weighing yourself, that kind of thing. I am an advocate for food logging. I know some people say, oh, well, it will be lead to disordered eating. No, I don't believe it does if you just use it as data, and because it's kind of, as soon as people start logging, it creates an awareness and understanding that, wow, all right, this has a lot of calories that I never noticed before. And so there's always a natural inclination to higher quality, tendency to less quantity of food once you start to food log, because it just creates the awareness. And I don't think that people need to food log for the rest of their lives, but I think that intermittent food logging is really helpful because it's really an education and it helps you connect the dots between what you're doing, the input, and the result. And there is a direct correlation. And like your client that is using that drug that has
right.
reduced her appetite, it's created an awareness that, hey, my friend, my family member here is just not eating as much. And I never noticed that before. And I noticed, oh, wow, I was eating double. Like I probably took half my food in a to go box, whereas before I wasn't. So it's a way to create awareness. And I know for myself as a coach, my job is to help to hold a mirror up to clients to create that awareness. And it's not with judgment, because food is food. Food is not good or bad or evil or angelic. It just is what it is. And of course we want higher quality, more nutrient dense foods, but there's room for all kinds of food in our nutrition plan. But the magic is in the deficit. So,
Yeah.
so food logging helps you create the awareness so that you can know what that deficit is.
Yeah. And with my clients, one of the things that they may, if they were listening, they may say, but Allie, you don't have us look at calories when we log our food, because I have them look at carb, fat, protein, which category does it, how many grams does it have, and which is it? Is this
Yep.
primarily a protein, a carb, or a fat? However, carbs, proteins, and fats all have calories, and they have a specific amount of calories. And so at the end of the day, even what I'm doing, the way that I have my clients log, it's still
Oh, it creates
tracking the
awareness.
data, and it's still
Exactly.
putting them in a calorie deficit. And I
Correct.
even have them put data of what their activity level is. I like to look at that along with the
Oh,
input data. I like to look at the output. What are you doing?
absolutely. Same. And
Yeah.
I mean, that also brings up the idea that, what? You can be, I'm not a big keto fan, but you can be on keto, you can be doing intermittent fasting, you can be doing the carnivore diet, you can be a vegetarian,
The
there
the
are
Breyer's
many
ice cream.
ways.
You can do the Breyer's ice cream diet. Eat Breyer's
Correct.
ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not your best. The loss that you're going to be experiencing might not be fat, it might be like muscle tone and bone
Right.
density, but you can make the scale go down
Yes.
eating in a variety of ways.
Yes.
So the big question is, if you cannot maintain the diet, you are not going to
Mhm.
be able to maintain the weight loss.
Yep.
So you should really be considering, like, how am I losing this weight, if
Yep.
unless I want to find that weight again.
Because when I call it squirrel chasing, and all these diets and things that we do, it's like, here's where we are and here's where we want to go, and all these things take us off course from where we want to go, and they cost us time, energy, and money. And
Yeah.
so whether it's a diet shot, whether it's keto, whether it's the grapefruit diet, they all would put us in a calorie deficit. So that's how the wow, if you've done a diet before and you've lost weight, well, that's why you lost weight, because you're in a calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight right now, well, that's why, because we're not in a
Still not
calorie deficit right now.
And so you know, here's kind of a catch where the calorie deficit is concerned. And I'm preaching to the choir here, Ollie. This is more for our listeners, that is that once you are in a calorie deficit, that calorie deficit it's on a sliding scale, because
Mm,
as you move from the bus, living in a bus size body, to living in a smart car size body, using this only as an example, for illustration, is that your calorie requirements are going to be less.
yep.
And there's something called metabolic adaptation, in addition to the fact that smaller bodies require less energy. But you can exacerbate that additionally by going into a super low calorie position, because your body just learns how to get by on less. So the best diet for you to go on is just a very small calorie deficit. And I know my clients have trouble with this. I don't know about yours, Alli, is that they get a little anxious because I'm not starving them. I
Oh, yeah.
want them to feel fueled, and they
Mhm.
feel like they're not doing enough, that they're eating way too much.
Yeah.
And the reason that we do that is because then, imagine a 1,500 calorie diet as opposed to 1,000 calorie diet. You're eating one third more. It still could be a deficit for the person, but it's like the weight loss is going to be slower,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes what happens is, if the person, and I'm sure many people can relate to this, is that you're white knuckling it through the week with 1,000 calories or 800 calories a day, and then by Friday night, or by like a few days in, you just go wild, and then you binge and overeat, and then the calorie surplus that you created in those 5 days, you blow it over the
Mhm.
weekend. So over the course of 7 days, we could have had you in a calorie deficit at 1,500 calories a day, which would have been like so doable. But now
Mhm.
you're in a surplus because you've eaten like the deficit and more
Three
over the
pizzas and a bucket of
correct,
burgers.
and all the ice cream
Fun.
and some alcohol. And so that's why it's kind of one step forward, two steps back, in addition to kind of damaging your metabolism, because your metabolism is like, doesn't know really what to do. Is it's like, all right, well, I guess I better kind of ease up because not many calories are coming in. Oh, there's a surplus. I better it was famine. Now I got to save this for a rainy day. So you're at risk of gaining more fat by doing that yo-yo thing. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've had clients experience that, and it's like a constant education for what I'm
Yeah.
trying to kind of.
Yes, I think sometimes clients are surprised at how much I want them to eat early on when they're changing it. And one of the things I explain to them is, as you lose, these numbers are going to drop. And so if we start way down here
Oh,
with your food, we have nowhere to go unless
correct.
you just want to eat like one pea a day or, carrot stick. And that be like, we have to start up here so we can come down. We can't start down here. And then,
There's
there's
nowhere to go.
there's
Yeah,
nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go.
yeah.
And so then you get yourself in a plateau is another thing that clients, these plateaus, and clients think that plateau is a bad thing. I actually think plateau
It's a
can be
good thing.
it's a good thing. And I tell clients this, your body has to get used to this new body you're living in.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And so winning, I mean, it gets frustrated because I know clients want to see the scale go down, but if you've lost
Always.
5 pounds and you're able to maintain that 5 pounds, that's kind of becomes your new high set point. So
Yeah.
if you were 155 pounds, and then for a month you're at 150, your body is like, okay, if and when I gain weight, I'm going to 150. I'm not going to 155.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so the other thing that rather than lowering the calories, like I said earlier, is why not just, go for an
More.
evening walk after dinner? You don't have to run a marathon. In fact,
Right.
that would be counterproductive. We don't need to exercise for hours and hours, especially when we're getting into our 40s and 50s and beyond and menopause. We've got enough stress and cortisol that those hard workouts. Cortisol is not a bad thing, by the way. Insulin is not a bad thing. These are helpful hormones. We just need to have them in the right balance. And so those, long, grueling workouts,
Mhm.
while they might feel like, you're burning calories. Yes, you are, but it might not be as productive as you'd like it to be for fat loss.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that you spoke of, you and I, when we were chatting, was that, and I think you wanted to bring this up, so I do definitely do as well. And we've talked about this on another podcast episode, weight, and when you're losing weight, that it's not always good weight just because you're losing weight. And one of the, like, speaking of the plateau thing, one of my clients that has been on the weight loss shots, one of the shots that has gotten off of it, she was frustrated that she has just maintained being off that shot too much. She maybe has lost a little bit more, but pretty much just maintained. And one of the things I said, like, you're not taking the medication anymore and you're maintaining, like, this
That's a
is a
win.
celebration. You're not
Win.
going way back up into it. And I'm guessing you're eating more, which is just wild, because she is active. She has, she's working with me. She's getting her physical activity up and those things. So, scale and getting obsessed with that number. And she's been gaining muscle and all that. And for her number to be staying the same, I'm celebrating. And she is stressed out about it, of course. Granted, that's what we do. So
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts on the whole, like, what are we losing, and what
Yeah. Oh,
something
of
we need to?
course. Yeah, because a lot of times, and especially when women are trying to lose weight, but they're starting a resistance training program, which is brilliant and fantastic and much needed, is that you might be losing a bit of fat and gaining a bit of muscle. Weight might be kind of zeroing out at the same. So the weight is not, I don't want to say irrelevant, but
Yeah.
women our age tend to have this strange association with weight, because back in the day, or maybe it's just our mentality that lighter must be better, and that we have to chase that number, whereas we really need to be chasing strength and functionality. And so rather than, judging all our success by the number on the scale, maybe we should be judging our success by the number of pounds we can lift,
Yeah.
and how our clothes are fitting and how we're feeling. Because you and I both know, Allie, that we could get someone to lose 25 pounds in a month. They will feel like a bag of soup and not want to leave the couch. And then they'll
Mhm.
probably gain that 25, an additional 10 pounds in the following month. So, that is probably as a result of muscle loss, of bone density loss. And so those are hard things to gain after you lose them.
And
So
calorie deficit makes it tough to maintain when we've talked about, to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. Well, when you put yourself in a calorie deficit, guess what is hard to keep? The weight that's the good weight is hard to keep.
yeah, so that's why we want to have that very slight calorie deficit for a longer period of time. I sometimes like to think of it like baking a cake. Good food you can't make fast. So just because I don't actually even know how to bake a cake, but if you were to bake a cake for, let's say it took an hour at 350 degrees, maybe that would make a nice cake. If you were a baker, you would know. I don't know. But I couldn't crank up the temperature to 700 degrees and cook it for a half an hour and get the same product.
Right.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
people don't really consider that it's the skills and the learning that happens in the course of the weight loss
Yeah.
that allows you to maintain that weight loss.
And that's the challenge with huge calorie deficit diet, any kind of diet that puts you at a
Yeah.
big calorie deficit, whether it's keto, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it or these or some kind of diet drug that is putting
Yeah.
you in that, suppressing your appetite. Then what? What about when you're no longer have that? If you have not made those changes
Yeah.
to your habits, to your behaviors, to your mindset, to your understanding, to your knowledge of food and calorie deficit and your exercise
Body.
regimen. And if you
Yeah.
haven't made those changes, then that's why I look at it as you've chased a squirrel that's gotten you way off track. And now you've got to still do that work eventually to
Yes.
get to where you want to be to live your life.
So, our good friend Craig Ballantyne used to say, like once like some things are really simple once you understand how complex, like once you understand how hard it is. Weight loss is hard, but the concept is simple, and that
Calorie deficit.
is calorie deficit. And if you are not losing the weight, it is likely that you are not in a calorie deficit. I also want to talk about the fact that not every season in your life is a time for weight loss. If
Mm,
you are, having like a very stressful season, I have a client that's going through radiation, and so with her, it's like, hey, we're not worried about weight loss. We are worried about health gain. So
yeah.
this is not a season for weight loss. Let's regain our health, and then
Mm.
we can look into weight loss. So there's many reasons why it might not
Surgery.
be a season. And a lot of people don't really consider that, hey, during COVID, I didn't, how several people, talk about the COVID 15 or the quarantine 15 or whatever.
Gaining weight, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so a lot of times um, people think that, hey, I haven't gained weight, but I didn't lose weight. But if they're going through a stressful season and they didn't gain weight, they don't see how that's a win. Like I've had
Oh my
some
gosh.
clients that through COVID, they didn't gain weight, even though they wanted to lose weight. I'm like, look, how many people gained the weight during COVID and you did not, but you're
Mhm.
still beating yourself up.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right? If you're going through a really stressful season or a job change or divorce or, kids are leaving.
Maintenance, yeah. Maintaining your weight sometimes
It's
is
the
such a
win.
celebration that we do not celebrate. We don't look at that as the win that it is. When you're, especially in tough times, if you can maintain your weight and let's say you've done some calorie deficit, you've done the work and you've dropped some weight, and then you're able to maintain that during tough times, holy moly,
Yeah.
that is huge. That's a huge celebration because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when those are the things that get us out of a calorie deficit and off track is when we have stress in our life. And if you can
Right.
hold your own, then you're starting when you come out of that stressful situation, instead of starting 15 or 20 pounds heavier and having
Yeah.
to go backwards to where you were and then rebuild, you're
Yeah.
here and you just get to rebuild from that maintenance place,
Yeah.
that plateau. You get to start right there and you get to just build from there, which is such a win.
Well, and I think that so many people tend to self-sabotage because they're always looking at, okay, but I need to lose this 10 pounds. And then when that doesn't happen, they self-sabotage and now they have to lose 15. So
Mm-hmm.
rather than celebrating, hey, I got through this stressful season without weight gain, now they're digging themselves out of a hole. So I
Mhm.
often, it's great to have the goal. It's great to have, to be looking forward, but we also need to give ourselves credit by looking back and say, hey, but these are the wins that I had. Because even if you have a big weight loss goal, let's say you have a 50-pound weight loss goal and you've lost 20 pounds, but you get discouraged because you have 30 more pounds to go, you're like that horizon just keeps moving. So you're always forever going to be, hey, but I've got a ways to go. Well, guess what? It never ends. Even if and when you lose the 50 pounds, now you have to maintain it.
Yep.
Unless you die, you're always going to live to eat another day. So you're going to have to be applying those same habits. So it is a marathon, it is not a sprint. We need to just kind of take a breath and just do one day at a time and give ourselves credit and grace for where we've been. Keep an eye on the future, of course, because we don't want to eat like it's spring break, because then that's going to not support our health goals for the most part. But like I said, that horizon is always going to be moving and we're always going to be setting a new goal. Oh, well, now my skin is kind of loose. And so like you're just
Mhm.
never going to be happy.
Right, right. Yeah, even when people lose a lot of weight, that they think that it's, what we think is what it's gonna be like is never what it is like. And
Exactly.
one of the things I want to say about plateaus that ties into what you just said is one of the reasons they're such a win is to be able to maintain or plateau a new weight that you've gotten to. That means you're maintaining new habits. Because if
Oh,
you were going
yes.
back to your old habits, you would have gained that weight back. And so
Yep.
that means you have adopted and you are practicing consistently these new habits. And that's why plateaus are one of the, the maintenance and plateau phases are so huge, because
Yeah.
now you're proving that you can do it, and you're doing it, and you're continuing to do it. So such a win.
I think that's one of the benefits of having some outside eyes,
Yep.
because it helps you have a perspective where, most people are really tough on themselves and don't give themselves the credit or grace that they would to a friend or a coworker or someone else. They just beat themselves up. So some outside eyes, whether it generally is going to be a coach, because that's going to be someone that's going to have the hard conversations or provide the perspective, that it gives you a different perspective on what your wins are and what you should actually be working at. Like, not necessarily working at eating less, but working at like adding to your life, adding vegetables, adding fiber, rather than the mindset of, well, I need to go on a diet, I need to take away, take away, take away. So having a coach does provide that perspective. So if
Sure.
what would be your wish for our listeners today that are, maybe are not losing weight, and they want to continue on that journey?
My wish would be for our listeners to learn more about how food serves you and what it does, how it fuels us, and take baby steps and celebrate each and every win along the way, and be consistent over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, and mine is similar in that knowledge is power. When you know better, you do better. And you don't have to have a nutrition degree, but a general understanding of, what fuels
Logging.
us for you,
Mm.
and understanding how your body reacts to certain foods is very liberating. I just find it so interesting that, we eat our entire lives, but a lot of times both of us start working with people that they really have very little awareness of what foods are their triggers, or what, you know
Yep.
the whole idea of behaviors and reactions around food. So creating an awareness of intake and results is, I hope that people will start to kind of take a broader view of that, and be
Mm.
more patient and gracious with themselves along the way.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Allie, on Instagram at Allie Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.